Hey everyone, welcome to the Metaphysical Mining channel. I'm your host, Michelle DeVries, and I am really excited for episode 5. Jerry Marzinsky is back and he is on fire. He brought a client with him and her name is Ava. This is the very first time one of Jerry's clients has agreed to go on the record and share their story and their treatment success. We discuss the That's a Lie program created by Jerry's friend and co-author, Sherry Sweeney, and we also introduce an alternative therapy that Jerry's had tremendous success using recently called the Mace Energy Method. Buckle up, buttercups, as Jerry's fed up with the establishment and dropping napalms of truth. Let's dig in. I have a returning guest, Jerry Marzinsky, and he brought with him a friend. Her name is Ava. Welcome back, Jerry, and welcome to the show, Ava.
Good to be back.
Jerry wanted to start off by giving us a little background on the failure of the mental health system. Then we're going to talk about an alternative therapy that Jerry has been using among his clients. Then Ava's going to come on board and talk about how she used both the current mental health system as well as this alternative type of therapy. And she can talk to her experience with both of those types of environments. Jerry, if you want to start us off.
I want to start a little bit with my background. I've got 35 years of frontline experience in every kind of mental health setting there is in the US. I've worked 7 years in the biggest psychiatric hospital on the planet. I've worked 18 years in the psychology department of a major US prison. I've worked in mental health centers. I've worked in private psychiatric hospitals. I've worked in county psychiatric hospitals. I spent the last 11 or 12 years working psych crisis in huge hospital emergency rooms. I've been on the front lines my entire life. And I'm going to tell you, the US Western mental health system is a drug-fueled merry-go-round administered by the psychiatric mafia and driven by big pharma. Time and time again with the hospitals is they bring in somebody who's having mental health problems. They drug them senseless. They put them on those drugs, give them a prescription, and then let them loose. Psychiatrists don't hardly talk to anybody anymore. You can't go into a psychiatrist's office anymore without coming out with a drug. Those disorders that they made up, that DSM-4 and 5, the dictionary, the Bible of psychiatry, the dictionary of psychiatric disorders, you think those are real, disorders like medical disorders. No, they're all made up. The DSM-4 and 5 is a work of fiction. They're dreamt up by psychiatrists. They're voted into this manual. And they said it's like a tobacco barn when they vote them in. Some guy comes in and goes, "Hey, I got a new psychiatric disorder. What do you guys think about this?" And he presents it and they all vote it in. They also vote them out. They voted out mental retardation. I think Southern Bell syndrome, was in there for a while. They voted that out. Homosexuality was listed as a mental disorder for a while. They voted that out. They vote these things in and out at their discretion. Once they vote them in, psychiatry comes in behind them and makes up some kind of drug and then sells it for this. Both psychiatry and big pharma. If you look at your TV advertisements, almost every one that comes on is one for some kind of drug. The deep-pocketed big pharma have bought off Congress. They've bought off the universities, and they've been teaching that all mental illness is a chemical imbalance that their drugs somehow fix. That is a complete lie. They haven't been able to find any chemical imbalance of the brain. They've been saying forever that schizophrenia is due to a chemical imbalance. And it was made up. They knew it was wrong at the time and they pushed it, and they're still pushing it, even though it's wrong. And they're teaching that in the universities now, even though it's been disproven. There is no chemical imbalance. It's fraudulent. So,
and also what I've heard you say on multiple shows is that there's, in the other medical professions, there's blood work that you could do. There's testing. And I remember you saying there's no test to do for these things, as in blood work and labs. There's no lab work.
There is no clinical test for any one of their disorders. None. There's no blood work. There's no kind of test. There's no nothing. So,
So it's just up to the doctor to assess the situation and come to the conclusion.
How can he assess a chemical imbalance when there is no
Yes.
test for a chemical imbalance?
Exactly.
And this is what's being taught in the universities. It's fraud. It's absolute
It's
fraud.
like every other medical profession, you have to show the proof of something.
Yeah, here's the
with
blood
any
work.
type of diagnosis, where is the lab work for this? And then when I heard you say that, I was like, wow, I never knew that. There's a lot of us that don't realize that there is no lab work. You're used to that when you go to your primary care physician. You get your blood work. If there's a problem, you get more blood work, or you get certain type of testing and you follow up with certain things. There's always a test. There's always something that shows a result for the most part. But when I heard you say that, I was like, wow, it had me rethinking everything about the psychological field.
Oh, it's a giant sham. It doesn't work. It's expensive. It's a drug-fueled merry-go-round, like I said. And here's psychiatry insisting that there's no other means of treating any psychological disorder other than with their drugs. They discount and barrage and put down any other kind of treatment. So we have Eva here today, who's a very successful client of mine, who came in with what would have been diagnosed as schizophrenia, and it's gone. It's gone. So they say there is no way to cure schizophrenia. And Eva is not the only one. There's several others. This is all done by a new therapeutic concept called the Energy Method, which I'll get into later.
And it's MACE. It's M-A-C-E.
M-A-C-E.
Yeah. Yep.
So psychiatry and big pharma keep pushing their drugs. These drugs, especially for schizophrenia, are very toxic. They're some of the most toxic and dangerous drugs used in medicine today. They cause all kinds of, they rot out the brain, they shrink the brain, they rot out the peripheral nervous system. And when researchers found that the brains of long-term schizophrenics were shrunk, and they brought that forward, oh, the psychiatric mafia went nuts, and the pharmaceutical industry went nuts behind them. Oh no, it's the schizophrenia that does it. The schizophrenia causes the brain, so the researchers went and they gave these neuroleptic drugs to rats, and their brains shrunk. And what they found in autopsies of long-term schizophrenics who've been using these drugs forever, their brains were shrunk. These drugs are causing severe physiological and psychiatric and neurological damage. And these are the only doctors who fly in the face of, what is it, that the code, the medical code?
Yeah. Yes.
What is
what is the first
do no harm?
Yeah, do no harm.
Do no harm. These antipsychotic drugs are toxic. A lot of the antidepressants they use function just slightly above random. They function just slightly above placebos.
But they make it worse. Those the antidepressants, they make it worse sometimes.
You ever taken those suckers?
Yes, Wellbutrin.
Yeah. And Wellbutrin's real addictive. When you try to get off that stuff, it's really hard to get off of if you've been on it for any length of time. So they got you hooked.
Yeah, but it didn't do anything to me. So I'm just saying that sometimes I don't know if they even do any good. Like you said, barely. They could even make it worse.
Right. And they charge an arm and a leg for those things.
Let me ask Eva, when were you officially diagnosed?
I haven't been diagnosed with schizophrenia. I've been diagnosed with depression because I have always been depressed my whole life, because the kind of movies I like and the music I like and the society I grew up in kind of romanticizes suicide and depression and dying of a broken heart. There's like a societal thing sometimes too, So my whole life I was depressed, and then I got more depressed and more depressed and more depressed and more depressed. And it's a long story, but I called the what do you call it, the mental health department, just because I figure why not. And then they gave me the prescription, the Wellbutrin. But like Jerry says, they just ask you questions. They don't take tests, but it's all questions. Those questions where you check a box?
Yes.
That's how you become, that's, I think, how you get diagnosed with any of those diseases, isn't it?
It's probably how many boxes you check equals this diagnosis, or, is that kind of how it is, Jerry?
Well, they have, what they've done is they've taken the whole gamut of human behavior, chopped it up into segments.
Yeah.
And then put a disorder on all these different segments that have already,
Yeah, so it's probably like
forever.
if you check this, and this, then
Right.
it correlates to that. And if
Yeah.
you check, then and if you check multiple areas, then you could have A, B, and C diagnosis.
Right. So they have symptoms, and that's
Yeah.
it. There is no clinical test.
Sorry, I thought I had borderline disorder or whatever, like 15 years ago, because I went online and they said, do you ever feel like this? Yes. Do you ever feel like this? Yes. Then you can take this test and it's like, well, you most likely have borderline, whatever it's called. I don't even know what it's called. And then people use that as a, oh, I have this.
As like
they can do whatever they want. But I have this. I have to cut myself. Oh, well, I had depression. I cried a lot, okay? But I had a really bad, maybe, experience in my past. And I'm very sensitive. So, yeah, when you're sad, you want help, because that's how I knew the psychiatrists. I thought that they were supposed to help you, and then you can talk to them. So I went to, which one do you talk to? The psychologist, right?
Psychologist will talk to you. Psychiatrist will dump drugs on you and say, come back in a month, get some more.
But the psychologist actually talks, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't really help. It makes it worse. It's just like telling your friend about anything. It could be that you saw an animal die. It could be that you saw somebody punch somebody. It could be that you saw somebody being raped or being raped. That is not fun to talk about. Why are people even talking about it? Why are people even watching the news? There's too much negativity in the world. Anyone can get depressed.
That's what Mace said too. Well, you just talk about that stuff. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't solve anything. It doesn't get rid of the bad feelings.
It makes it more, you think more about it.
Makes it worse. Then he brings that up.
Yeah.
And then you identify as that. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, then you identify as that. You identify as the victim. Then you identify as this person that everybody has to feel sorry for or take care of,
And it almost feeds it. It makes it worse, right?
Yeah.
It like perpetuates it, is kind of what it sounds like you're saying.
So it sounds like, Ava, you started off and the depression started growing. The drugs didn't do any good. Things got worse and worse. And then eventually you started hearing voices.
Yes, because I think I noticed the voices when I started flying trapeze, because to be honest, I think they've always been there, but nobody teaches you to be aware of, like as a child, they tell you, oh, that's not good, don't do that. And you know how they do when they raise people. Nobody raises people perfectly. So when you're a child, those voices that you hear, oh, you're a bad boy or girl or whatever, they might get into your head. And then when you're older, when you're 12 or 15, those voices might come out and say, well, you're a bad boy anyway, or a bad girl or whatever. And so when you grow older and older, I think there's more of these voices that are accumulated throughout your life, whether they're bigger or smaller, depends on the person's. Like me, I was so sad and depressed anyway that these negative voices became towards self-hate, where you feel like, oh, I'm just going to kill myself, or I'm not worth shit, or who do you think you are, you piece of shit motherfucker? And you can bleep that out.
No,
but when I started flying trapeze, I didn't know I was afraid of heights, and I was on 33 feet up in the air, and I was supposed to jump from this pedestal, and I didn't want to jump, so they had to kick my feet off. But what I was scared of was actually to kill myself, because the voice say, why don't you jump, right? And what you're scared of is not the heights, you're scared of jumping. So you're scared of this destructive thought that can come. And this is what I call the voices in the head, is this destructive thoughts that say that you're not worth anything. Why don't you drive on the other side of the road? Why don't you cut yourself? Why don't you? It just, it's anything that's adding to very bad thoughts.
It's like accentuating them. It's magnifying them.
I don't have bad thoughts. They're not mine. See, they're lies, because I'm a pure spiritual being. And when you realize that life is easy, that's the lie program. When I realized, I mean, I'm going ahead right now, but what I'm trying to say is those voices, yes, they can make you do not things. They can make you not do things that you want, like flying trapeze, because they make you believe you're going to kill yourself. Or when you drive a car, if you ever feel like you're sad, you don't want to go in a car, because then maybe it would tell you to drive into somebody, right? Or to the road, so you die, whatever. And so I think a lot of people have these feelings or thoughts, and I never really paid much attention to them. I thought everybody had them. They're not interfering with my life because I'm still able to, I'm a good person, and I never do anything bad. Just because the voices say that I'm a bad person or that I should do things that are bad, I never acted on them. That is the background to where I was at when I found Jerry. At least, if you want to know more, let me know, but that's how I see it. Like, so there's all these years, starting when you're young, and then when I was faced with this height, I didn't know I was scared of heights. It becomes a phobia, and then you start to think these thoughts about killing yourself when you're depressed. Because I haven't taken any drugs.
What year, like how old were you when you started doing the trapeze?
In my 20s, but it started when I was younger. I know the negativity started young because of my culture. When I was in my 20s, I don't think I knew that I was going to be scared, because I had been scuba diving before and traveled the world and done things. I never thought I would be scared of anything. And I didn't know that I was scared. And then that's the fear. I think these demons or these voices feed on fear.
They do.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm glad that you brought up, Jerry brought up how the mental health system almost has this fraudulent scaffolding that has set it up. And then Ava, you come in and talk about how they're there to help somebody, but then they end up not helping somebody. And so it's almost as if this predatory archetype is the one that set up the whole system, because it's not for our benefit.
No,
it doesn't seem at all. And it's benefiting something else that is then feeding off of these individuals who are trying to get help. Then someone like Jerry is trying to help them. Then Jerry ends up trying to help the human while he's trying to combat this predatory archetype. And if you don't know about this predatory archetype, then you're just going to keep going in this loop, this unhealthy loop.
Is the predatory archetype, is that an entity?
It can be. The way I write about it in the paper, it affects us on a macro and a micro. And for your example, and for Jerry, it would be the micro perspective. So it's the way in which this predator reaches into our reality and drills down into the individual. And one of those examples is what Jerry has uncovered, which is the parasitical type aspect of the hidden predator, which the parasitical entity would be an avatar, essentially. So there are other types of entities in quotes, and I base it off of the behavior patterns I got from all of the authors and researchers that I used in the paper. Some of the avatars that fall underneath the predator, they don't speak, they don't interact with their victim in the way in which Jerry has experienced it, or the way in which you have experienced it. In some of the other books, they're silent and deadly. And so, but that's for another show. For this show, we're focusing in on the parasitical aspect of it and how it works on the micro scale, specifically the individual.
Well, there's a macro.
There's
a macro scale also. I mean, it goes. Yeah. These drugs that they're dishing out, these expensive psychiatric drugs, cure nothing, and their prices are astronomical. I mean, if you go across the border into Mexico, you'll pay 1/3 the price of what these drugs cost in the U.S. because they can get away with scalping the people in the U.S. and they're still making a profit in Mexico at that 1/3 price. You can order them over the counter in Mexico where you can't hear. These antipsychotic drugs are not abusable drugs. Nobody wants to take those things. They're horrible. They turn you into a zombie, yet psychiatry hold on to those things like they're gold. They don't make any money out of curing people. They make money out of, constantly bringing them in and drugging them up, And
so that's like the micro scale of it, is that it's feeding on a specific segment of the population,
and
that aspect from a micro scale. And then Ava, you're an example of how it drills down into the micro scale. And I'm sorry, what he said was the macro scale.
Right.
Yeah. So,
it goes further.
It's really subtle and nuanced.
The suicide rate in the U.S. is about 75,000 a year right now. Wow. That's more than died in Vietnam. And you think we've got a mental health system? What kind of mental health system had 75,000 people are committing suicide every year? You know, the suicide rate of schizophrenics is 3 times that of the normal population. But the suicide rate of psychiatrists is also 3 times that of the normal population. These suckers know they're not doing anybody any good.
Yeah.
You know, so, and they're assaulted and they're murdered at a higher rate than any other doctor. And then when you look at psychology, you know, they'll talk to people, but like Eva was saying, you're just talking the same stuff over and over and over again. It doesn't make you feel any better. It doesn't cure anything. If you look at the research they're doing, 80% of the research that psychologists do is not replicable. That means it's bullcrap. You know, they're just print. And when I was in the doctoral program, it was like print or publish. That's how the staff survived. If you didn't publish, you perished.
Oh,
You know, and then on top of that, they closed down all the state hospitals.
yeah.
They funneled everybody to mental health centers, and people who are hearing voices aren't going to want to voluntarily go to a mental health center to get these horrible drugs. They go out on the streets, they commit crimes to survive, and now they're all in prison. The prisons are packed with psychotic patients that used to be in state hospitals. After they're abused in the prisons for years and years and years, then they're released on the public, you know, in worse shape than they went in. And the
There's
recidivism rate
absolutely no rehabilitation for
None.
that specific type of individual.
no,
Yeah,
all they
it's
do
the
is
worst case scenario for them.
they don't even drug most of them up. If they're not causing problems, they don't even give them antipsychotics.
Yeah,
So the
because that's money
recidivism-
they would have to spend on them.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the recidivism rate in prisons is between 50 and 75% within
Wow.
3 years. Would you buy a car if there was a 75% of a major breakdown in 3 years? No.
No.
So
we wouldn't.
that's where they've gone with this. I mean, it's a total failure. It's a plague on society.
So this new method that you brought up, the Mace Energy Method, how long have you been using that with your clients now?
Oh, I've been using it probably for almost a year,
Okay.
you know, and
And besides Ava, how many other clients have you used it with?
you know, probably close to 60.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is the only method that works. I mean, everything I was taught in undergraduate and in the master's program and the PhD program, none of that worked. You get out to the real world and it doesn't work. It just, it's like Eva said, you just talk about the same stuff over and over and over again.
Yeah. Let's describe then, everyone understands the perspective of the current mental health system, at least the little that we gave on it. And let's describe and talk about the Mace Energy Method. What exactly is that?
Well, yeah, I was trying to think how to put that into a few words with, you know, I've got like a 600-page manual there that I've been studying, and it goes on and on. But
we did 2 things. We did live program too. It's a live program. Don't forget that. It's a live program.
That's a live program.
Oh,
that's
okay.
a live program was come up with by Sherry.
Yes, I actually interviewed Sherry Sweeney. They're talking about Sherry Sweeney, and on her blog, this was the very first episode that I did on the Metaphysical Mining channel. And there are links within that interview. There's the That's a Lie program, and then there's a That's the Lie program update. There's 2 links, and that's what the 2 of you are just talking about right now, is using that technique in conjunction with the Mace Energy Method. Did you use the That's a Lie program first, or did you use them together?
Oh, I got the That's a Lie program in the beginning, I think, with Jerry. What do you say, Jerry?
Yeah, we started out with that because the voices, if you know what they're telling you is a lie, they can't get their grip on you.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and what they do is they tell you awful things about yourself. They tell you awful things about other people, and virtually all of it are lies. What they want to do is,
as soon as you say it's a lie, they go away. They don't exist anymore.
Well, if you do it long enough.
So Ava, how long did you do that? How long did you do that That's a Lie program? Did it take you a month? Did it take you 6 months?
I think a few months. I think a few months until they were totally gone. And I noticed it immediately within weeks. Then after a few months, they're totally gone. I swear to God, this is the best thing in the world. It works so easy. It's the easiest. I love that everything is so easy. It doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows, Sherry Sweeney developed that to get rid of her own voices, right, Jerry?
Right.
And that's,
it works, you know, a lot of cases it won't get rid of the really, moderate to severe ones, but in lighter cases it will. And we were using that in conjunction with the Mace stuff.
Okay.
So what these entities feed off of is the damage done, the psychological damage. They go in and trigger from the traumas that the person has had, and they will trigger that, and then they'll feed off of that negative emotional energy that it triggers. And what's so interesting about it is John Mace was a ship captain. He wasn't a psychologist or an engineer or anything like that. Mm-hmm. He was a cargo ship captain, but he was brilliant. He pieced all this together, and he viewed the mind as a camera that takes pictures. So wherever you put your attention, the mind is taking pictures, and that's its sole function, is to take images. It's like a computer. The keyboard is the body. The body feeds information into the memory, which is the CPU or the spirit. He takes into account both the spiritual nature and the physical nature of man. And he looks at the two universes. And psychology and psychiatry don't take into account the spiritual nature of man. That's what keeps us all alive. These are like spacesuits. Mace takes into account both the physical nature and the spiritual nature. He says the spiritual nature, just like the Bible says, is your soul. That's perfect. And all the damage is done to the psyche that forms ridges. So what he says there are two different operations. There's the time exists in the physical universe, and in the energetic universe, where these voices are, where your thoughts come from. That has no time. There is no time in this energetic universe. Mm-hmm. So trying to treat schizophrenia or virtually any mental illness with drugs it's like trying to pour drugs on top of a magnetic field and hoping the magnetic field is going to disappear, because thoughts are energetic. The voices are energetic. Your memory is energetic. You are energetic. And what he talks about, he says that in the physical universe, time, there's moment after moment after moment after moment, and then comes a trauma. When that trauma hits, your attention shrinks down to that trauma, and everything else is blotted out. And that trauma is usually pretty bad. So you're trying to figure out, okay, what did I do to get into this? How did I get into this? What do I do to get out of it? How do I survive this? And that trauma is then buried, so you don't have to experience it. And it's not buried dead, it's buried alive. And it's buried out of awareness. What Mace says is that anything that you are aware of is not going to affect you, because you can do something about it. It's the stuff that you're not aware of that drives your behavior. And you can't stop it. It just keeps running in circles. The Mace method is a way of getting at that and deconstructing it so it no longer exists. He said when you bury something, it forms a ridge. It takes energy to keep it buried, and it just forms like a trigger. So when you're triggered by something, he'd call that a ridge that's stuck in there that you're not aware of, that triggers your behavior and drives your behavior that you're unaware of. And what's so cool about this system is you don't have to know what that trauma was.
Like you said, it's buried. So for the most part, you might not even know what it is.
You won't know what it is.
Yeah. And this reminds me of, in the very beginning of my paper, I used a quote from the Jesuits, say, give me a boy until the age of 7 and I'll show you the man. Because they understood from the age of 0 through 7, we're in that hypnotic state, theta, we're in theta.
Yeah.
And we remember everything's stored. Some of those ridges could possibly have come from the first 7 years of our life. Like Ava, you were saying, the way in which you were raised and the environment that you were in could have
They
caused
come from everything.
Yep.
We've been going down all of those places. We go hunting. When we meet up, me and Jerry, we go hunting. And we don't even know what we're looking for. So it could take you to before you're 7 or after 7 or whenever, and you will know when it happens, and you will know how to describe it, and you will know he helps you to get rid of it. And it doesn't even have to be an event. It could be a feeling.
You
Right,
guys
Jerry?
are working from the subconscious, right? You're getting somebody to almost activate that memory and bring it up.
Well, what happens is that your mind will form a picture of what it understands.
Okay.
Okay. If it doesn't understand it, it can't form an image. Okay. If there's no image, you got nothing to work with. You just have the feeling.
Right.
Okay. I feel depressed. What do you do with that? If you form an image, now you can do something with that image. And that image represents that emotion.
Yeah.
And the person can deconstruct that ridge. You know, once we find it, it can be deconstructed. And you want
by draining the emotion associated with it, right?
By draining the emotion associated with it. And then you get that energy back, because it takes a lot of energy to keep that stuff suppressed.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell them what it was like the first time you hit you blew apart a big ridge?
Well,
what did that feel like?
It's really exhausting because I'm very emotional and in tune with my feelings, which works because I think that's why I create a lot of ridges too, but I can also get rid of them, I think, pretty well. I mean, because I'm open for it and I'm letting it happen to me. And when you're done, you feel exhausted and you want to just sleep, but you also feel like you're getting that energy. But most of all, for me, it makes me a bigger person because now I'm allowed to be what I was supposed to be when I came on this earth, as that spiritual being, because all of these things, the ridges as we call them, has hindered me from, first of all, having that energy to myself, and then also you don't see life for what you don't see life. Life is so cool, like it's, I don't know how to explain it, but after you're done getting rid of most of those ridges, there's more room and more time for you to be creating yourself and being all these things you want to be on earth.
Excellent. So it almost advances you. Getting rid of these ridges makes you puts you into like another paradigm shift where you're able to expand your awareness and creativity and be more of the authentic self, right?
Yes, I had an out of body experience even because of how Jerry does when he does the technique, which I'm not sure if everybody does, because I don't know if everybody does this way, but he says to you, who's watching this thing that you watch inside of your eyes because you close your eyes. And then I'm like, I am. So you can't be that image then. No. And then you realize that you're actually this spiritual being that's standing outside of everything. And then you get all this energy that you have as a spiritual being. When you know what you are, it's easier for you to access it, I think, faster too. Ever since that one time, I feel like that's all I can think about. Instead of daydreaming, I think about my spiritual self.
Right. Well, and the voice really and the voices are gone, right?
Yeah, there's no bad voices anymore in my life. Because if they ever want to come back, I just say that's a lie. Even if they try, I have no room for them anymore.
And that's amazing. Congratulations.
And Eva's not the only one that got rid of her voices with the combination of these systems, what Sherry has and Mace. I mean, so you can get rid of the voices without drugs. And the psychiatric mafia is saying, oh no, you can't do anything. The only way to treat this is with drugs. That's the only valid way to treat this. Everything else is a bunch of crap. Because
they see us as physical, biochemical beings when we're actually metaphysical, like she's talking about, and biophysics and spiritual and energetic. You can't give a medicine that's a chemistry to somebody who's a physical being that's gonna, this is the fastest way, I think, to get better. This is like energy medicine a little bit.
Well, it is an energetic.
Yeah, it's called the Mace system. Mace Energy Method.
Mace Energy Method.
Yeah,
and it's fast. It's very quick, and it's very powerful.
It's fun.
Yeah, I'm glad that you guys are bringing it up in the way in which you're doing it, because I'm just reminded of a lot of the people that I chose to put in the paper were talking about dealing with this predatory aspect within the metaphysical realms, within the spiritual realms, within the magical type of realms, because I used magicians as well. I have a magician in the paper. And what's interesting, reflecting back on what we talked about in the beginning, is that I also write about how the predator understands our behavior. They're like advanced behavioral scientists, and they understand the way in which the human vessel operates and functions in conjunction with the spirit that's plugged into the human vessel. They know how to tweak us and fine tune us to produce a product that's beneficial for them. This whole entire medical establishment that we're talking about is, you could almost say that they set it up. They set it up by whispering in the ears of those that started it, the doctors that started the whole entire process, and they just keep whispering in the ears of everyone that is building upon it from that point forward. And it's only benefiting this other aspect of reality and not us.
That's
and
right.
So it's like you guys are almost, this reminds me of something that our ancestors would have already known about thousands of years ago. And this force came in and just obliterated it. And so people like you, Jerry, and you, Ava, you're remembering an aspect of the human being and how we are supposed to operate and function for real.
Yeah.
Like, this is the real way in which this is how powerful we are as human beings. So I know I kind of did like a little circle there, but I was trying to bring it back around to, we're remembering our true nature and our true power. And the way in which you talk about it, Ava, is so, it's just, it really gives me hope that we can actually get back to the way in which we should be functioning.
That's what the Mace system does. It removes those ridges and that leaves the spirit there. Yeah. I mean, so we're all perfect, and we're, the spirit is perfect. The spirit is energetic. There is no polluted energy. You don't ever hear of a polluted magnetic field or polluted electricity or polluted gravity. I mean, energy is perfect. It's pure. And the energetic spirit within the human is pure. Yeah. But these traumas and these ridges bend it and warp it. So the energy gets warped and stolen and suppressed. And once you remove that, then the spirit can shine again. Yeah. And psychiatry and psychology do not deal with the spirit.
All they do is perpetuate that. They perpetuate it and perpetuate it, but then who's benefiting? But that's where I look at it like, well, we're not benefiting, so something else is benefiting.
They're benefiting.
But we are programmed in school. First of all, we go through the indoctrination camp until we are 16. Then the media, with everything around you, is also programming us to react in this way. Because like Jerry told me, I'm not allowed to watch any scary movies. I'm supposed to watch 2 comedies a week, right? So society today, though, if you look at Netflix or anything, it's all about teenagers wanting to kill themselves, and then they find their diary, and then they go back. Why did she kill herself? Oh, it's normal to kill yourself. They make us think that is normal now. You can even have assisted suicide in Canada. They are programming us to become sick, I think.
Yeah, look at what they do. You turn on any TV show, and here's people shooting people with guns all over the place. And now they're trying to get rid of guns. Yeah. Here they are programming the population to shoot each other, and now they want to get rid of guns for self-defense. It's insanity.
Yes.
And here's Trudeau up there saying, oh, you can't even use a gun for self-defense in Canada now. You talk about insanity.
Yeah. So this patriarchal thing that she's talking about, because I'm interested in that patriarchal thing you're talking about, if it has been around for thousands of years, you say, right?
Well, I'm saying that the way in which our society has been established appears to be, and I'm working off of the research of Pierre Sebec. I'll send you his information when we're done. I'll email it to you. But his name is Pierre Sebec, and he's written, I believe, 4 books now. I'll have to, don't quote me on that. But I used 2 of his books in the paper, and I'm going to be interviewing him the end of the summer. But he goes through historical books and very ancient documents, and he's curated and brought together this whole story, like this historical timeline of how it looks as if they've set up our entire society from
I think so.
from our education to our governments to our medical, to every part of the society. Like I said, the scaffolding, they created it, and they created it for their benefit. And that's exactly what Pierre says. And so he comes at it from the very big picture of it. Then there's the Jerrys of the world that are deep down within the micro part of it that are dealing with it. I mean, you're dealing with the macro as well, because you're dealing with the machine that's functioning it. But the way Pierre Sabat kind of drills down into it is he goes way back thousands of years and says, in his opinion, it's been set up like that from day one. And it's almost like they put us in pens. You know, these different sectors of society is what I call them. I kind of take a sci-fi kind of look at it because I write fiction too. But it's like we have these sectors of society that are set up that they all individually benefit this other aspect of society. And that's where I get that part of it, is through Pierre Sabat's work and his research. But like I said, I can send you that, and I'm going to do a show with him and his research in a couple months.
Well, they
I'm
don't
just
want,
interested in it.
Yeah.
They don't want
it's
a
very
cure.
Fascinating.
They don't want a cure for schizophrenia. They've made that real clear. They reduced this research into schizophrenia down to virtually nothing. You know, they're pushing the same old drugs over and over, and they don't make money by curing people. They make money by selling drugs and office visits. And the thing is, they're poisoning these people. So the voices a lot of times will tell the patient, schizophrenic, that they're being poisoned by the psychiatrist because the side effects are so awful in these drugs. And in effect, they are being poisoned by the psychiatrist. The voices said, okay, you know, knock his head off. And that's one of the reasons psychiatrists are being attacked and murdered at a much higher rate than any other friggin' doctor, because these drugs are toxic. They're some of the most dangerous drugs used in medicine today.
Wow.
You know, and these guys don't warn the patients of the side effects, of the dangerous side effects that these drugs can produce with long-term use. They hardly ever do it. I've never seen them do it in the state hospital. I haven't seen them do it in psychiatric hospital.
How do they come up with these drugs? Like, do they test it on monkeys first or on people?
Well, what they did is they discovered them by accident in the dye labs of Europe. You know, so they oh, we spent billions of dollars in research. No, they discovered it by accident, phenothiazines. And then they purified it, and they were using it as a sedative for a while. They were using it for surgery for a while. And then, you know, these psychiatrists got an idea, hey, we can use this on mental patients. They wouldn't let them use it in Europe. So they came over to the US and they started using it in the psych hospitals in the US. And when they found out that they could drug up and subdue and tranquilize entire psychiatric populations with this stuff, it was an instant hit. You know, it was like, oh yeah, Thorazine, well, yeah. And it just went nuts. And they started drugging psychiatric populations ever since then.
You say that it happened by accident, but I say that something was whispering in their ear to get them to do those types of things. That's where the macro kind of egregore aspect of this whole predator comes in, where it functions on multiple levels. It doesn't matter your worldly status, your economic status. It doesn't matter if you're educated. It's gonna hit you at every level. So these people think that they're coming up with these great ideas, but they're probably hearing those voices as well.
It's like the vaccines.
Yeah, to a certain extent. They're probably hearing these voices. You know, a lot of the great discoveries, if you look into, if you read the biographies of a lot of these men and women that made these great discoveries, they all say things like, I was in the lab, I had given up, and boom, it was injected into my head. Well, that's you're hearing a voice, people. I mean, let's call it what it is. So because that man or woman that did this quote unquote brilliant thing, so you don't have a problem with that voice, but you have a problem with these other voices. It's like, well, they're all hearing voices. To me, it's the same damn thing. I don't care if you discovered penicillin from it, it's a voice, okay? And it ain't coming from you. So that's where, you know, I kind of get rid of the bullshit, and all levels of society are hearing a voice at some point in their life. And they're just passing it off as something else because maybe they're benefiting from it initially. But in the end, when you're talking about these drugs, no one's benefiting from it except for whatever is feeding off of it from an energetic standpoint. Correct?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And Don Mace brings up the fact that in the physical universe, two physical objects can't occupy the same space at the same time. That's not true in the energetic universe, which operates by totally different rules that he found himself without any psychological training. I mean, the guy's a genius. When you look at that with regard to the voices, schizophrenics here, you know, they have their own thoughts, and the schizophrenic voice can also occupy that same space. I remember one patient I was talking to where I was telling him, well, tell your voice is this. And he said, they can hear you. And I'm like, what? You know, he said, they can see you. So they were occupying the same space as he was in his head.
Yeah.
You know, so in the energetic universe, two entities can occupy the same space. And that's what schizophrenia is. It's another entity occupying the mental space, the physical space, with your mind and other thoughts, but they don't come from you.
Yep. Yeah, it's really fascinating and terrifying at the same time. But when we hear somebody like Jerry and Ava talk, it becomes less terrifying, because then we understand how we can actually defend ourselves against something like this.
Yeah, because we are in charge. You see, this is the thing. We are in charge. See, we are pure spiritual beings. And that's why when you know it's a lie, they can say whatever they want. You can have the devil in front of you if you believe in the devil. And if you know the truth, and you know that anything that's not positive, anything that's not pure is a lie, there's nothing that can scare you. I'm sure there's something that can scare people, even me. Like I get nervous when my cat gets sick, right? We're human beings, but overall, I don't think there is anything to fear, because no matter all these voices, I'm just making fun of them right now because they're just stupid if they think they can take over the world.
How long did you, so let's go back to the Mace Energy Method. When you were using that in conjunction with the That's a Lie program, how long did it take? Was it even faster than the That's a Lie, or was it about the same rate at which you saw results?
For me, with the That's a Lie, it made the voices go away. As far as I knew they were kind of still hanging out there, but you don't want to put any attention on them. And I got a lot of good literature to read too. So all the books I went through when I was starting to see Jerry was about how thoughts are being put in our head, how we are pure when we're born, and it has to do with knowing that. And the way those are really good books Jerry can tell you about later on that I read that helped me too. And then when we started doing these maze sessions where I close my eyes and we go hunting for things that are, so to say, things that kind of are devastating for you, whatever they are, that make you cry, that makes you feel like the world is going under, that makes all these horrible things, whatever they are, we get rid of them. It's like cleaning house. We've been cleaning house now for a while. So much even that at one point now, last time, Jerry even asked if I had any more stuff to clean up. And I said, yes, I do, because I know I do, because I'm so sensitive. I'm sure I do. My goal is to get rid of all the past negative ridges that has affected me. And I think I will get there. And I'm sorry, it's taking a long time, but I think we should start this earlier with kids. This is such an easy thing to do. We need more of these maze practitioners. So I wanted to start learning how to do it. And you can do online courses. I'm not advertising them, but I am, because I want to take the online course in Mace Energy Techniques so I can help people. I got friends of mine that say they want me to help them. People see my success every day when I go out to fly trapeze. I used to be hindered. Yes, I used to be hindered by these thoughts. And we all,
by the way, that's such an amazing thing that you do that. I mean, I have never met anybody that's done that. So I'm really fascinated by that. And so how did you said you got into that when you were in your 20s?
Yeah, I just learned how to fly trapeze because I like the circus, but then I
Okay.
learned that I was scared of heights, and that's when these voices came. I was very stubborn and continued to fly, but I still had the voices. These voices always tell you that you can break your neck. These voices always tell you that you're gonna break an arm. These voices tell you you're gonna fall on your head. So when these voices tell you all these things, you act differently. You're scared. Now, when the voices are not there, I don't have anything to fear. I'm not going to fall on my head. I'm an energy being. I'm just using this body. They can't touch me, these voices. I fly trapeze better than I ever done. My friends are still stuck with these voices. I tell them to tell them, because we all have them more or less. And there's always something saying to them, you can't do it. Who do you think you are? No, no, no. But they have an ego. The ego wants them to do it, but the voices make them doubt themselves. And they will never get to the point where they want to be because they let the voices control them. They're not in charge of their own body.
And like you said, no one teaches us about this aspect of ourselves, not only ourselves, but our environment. It's really wonderful that you were able to find Jerry, and that you were able to heal yourself in this way. And Jerry, how different is she now versus when she first came to you? Because she's she's infectious, you know. I want to go fly the trapeze.
Let's ask her. How different are you from when we started?
But I just said it because everybody noticed it on the trapeze. I don't have any restrictions on me anymore. I don't think that I'm not good enough or I can't do anything.
The people notice the difference in you?
Everybody does. My best friend that I fly trapeze with, I think she's jealous because she can see the success, right? She can see what I'm doing and she wants to change, but you have to work. It didn't come overnight. Like I actually think people need to commit. And also I think if you're willing to work on it, it's very easy. You got to be a certain personality. Like even Jerry said that not everyone can heal because not everybody, they're not ready. They don't want to maybe work. They don't want to, it's a little bit of work.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, how about you as a person? Have they noticed any difference in you as a person? Or do you feel...
I'm not perfect yet though.
Well, nobody is. But I mean, are you more outgoing? Like, what were you before? Because I never met you until now.
I was always full of life energy, and I was always gregarious. But I think that now, when I don't have any, I was also full of fear. I was so full of fear. I was scared of terrorists. I couldn't even fly to another country because I was scared of terrorists. I was scared of snakes. I was scared of, I don't even know. I was scared of everything because the fear part, you see? But so I think it helped me with everything as a person because, like I said, I'm not perfect because I get irritated in the morning and I want to stay away from people than being nasty, like, you know, like being irritated. But also you have to tell them, Jerry, I used to want to drink alcohol every day. And he said that's what an alcoholic wants. But I didn't know, it's too long of a story to go into exactly, but the point of the matter is that when we dealt with one of these identities that I created that like to drink every day for whatever reason, we got rid of that identity. And when we got rid of that identity, I didn't want to drink every day anymore. Now I've had a glass of wine one day with my steak. Another time I had a beer, but I don't have... See, that's what the Mace technique is about. It's about us having different identities every day. One identity is a flying trapeze person. One identity is the one driving the car. The identities that don't do you good are the ones we get rid of.
And those are the ones that are hidden. And I've heard that the Mace could get rid of alcoholism or alcoholic type drinking. And I'd like, oh, no, until... until she comes back the next week, Ava. She says, I can drink normally now. I don't have to drink every day like I did before. I'm like, what?
So you don't have that compulsion to have that drink every day. You can actually choose when you're doing it. Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't have that. I don't have that identity anymore. That one is gone. Now I have other identities. It sounds almost like you have personalities. To be honest, I don't know.
That's kind of what they are.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're negative personalities.
Yeah, and you don't want to have anything that is negative for you. And so it's, most people die without even getting over eating candy, let alone drinking alcohol, whatever identity they have that is not good for them. They get, maybe not eating candy, but you know what I mean, whatever what might be negative for them. I also realized that a lot of people die without finding out that these voices are not their own. I think I'm very blessed and lucky and everything else to have discovered it already, because when I do die, then I'm gonna be, I'm actually I feel like I kind of know, I feel like I am so close to being enlightened. It sounds weird probably, but
no, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. And it sounds like it was meant to be for the two of you to meet. And so how did you meet Jerry? How did you listen to one of his interviews or?
No, see, that's why they say that, maybe they say God works in mysterious ways. Maybe they say sometimes that things happen for a reason, but I had been thinking about physical parasites for other reasons, because I was studying with a doctor in Mexico who was talking about how parasites breed during a full moon because it has to do with vibrations. Then I saw on, it's very interesting. I saw on Rumble, Jerry Marzinsky's video about something about the voices being energetic parasites, or about entities being energetic parasites. And I thought, oh, parasites being energetic? What? I thought parasites were only worms and things, right? And so, no, it was really interesting. So I was like, who is this guy? I started listening to him and it was fascinating and it was interesting. Then I went on his website and it said that you could contact him. And first I thought about, I didn't even think I could be the project. I thought about my friend who came back from Iraq, who has a lot of voices in his head, probably from being in the war. I thought about him. I wanted to give him the gift to meet Jerry and have a session with him. But instead I took the session. And then I just went from there because it worked really well.
You've got to send me that information on the physical parasites breeding during a full moon. That's pretty fascinating in itself. I mean, that's a little tangent there. I made a note to remind myself to get that from you. But so that's really interesting, Jerry, that the physical parasites got her to you. There's a synchronicity there. It's crazy synchromysticism. But this is really incredible. How long have you been using the Mace Energy System as of now? Has it been 6 months? Did you guys start at the beginning of the year?
I think we started in January, Jerry. What do you think?
Yeah, it's somewhere maybe late January.
And then do you happen to know roughly how many of these ridges or identities that you had to work through, just so someone has an idea if they want to pursue this type of treatment, because it's a lot of work. I've done a couple sessions with Cherie, who Jerry and I work with, and you really have to want to work on yourself.
So you done it too? You done it?
Yes.
Yeah, she's experienced it.
Yeah.
I mean, what's so interesting about it is there's no advice of any kind given.
No, you just start.
You don't have to know what the issue is.
Yeah.
And and under no circumstances do you try to explain anything, because it's the entity within the person that does the finding of where it is. It's the entity that finds the buried
you
ridge.
almost go through your personal Rolodex and then poop, this picture will pop up. Or for me, like for me, it's sometimes I'm a very visual, so I'll see things as movies or as pictures. But the one time I've actually done this in front of Jerry and Sherry before, so it was like, there was a couple of us when I was actually doing it. And the second time I think I did it in front of everybody again, it wasn't a picture that came up. It was an abstract symbol. If somebody does this, you might not get that picture, that Mace energy picture that would come up, or a person's face, or you see certain things, or you'll see yourself in a scenario. But I saw an actual geometric shape.
Yeah, it's amazing what comes up. It makes no sense.
Yeah, and it doesn't. And it was like, I'm not going to say what this is because I know this is not normal.
No, but it represented for you. It represented a feeling. Yeah. So that's the feeling that your mind is. That's the image that your mind or your soul associated that image to.
Yep.
So once that image is gotten rid of, then that feeling goes with it.
Yep. It
Yeah.
just like, it just dissipates once
Right,
you do
right.
that. But
So
just so
the
if
mind
anybody
won't-
does this and they get a shape, just go with it.
Yeah.
Because it worked for me.
It makes no sense
color.
what the mind comes up with. It comes up with
color.
all kinds of crazy stuff.
It wasn't a color. It was like
But
a
I'm saying it could
triangle,
happen
or
too.
it was like a diamond or something. It was really weird. It was totally, it was a shape that, I'm terrible at drawing, but if I could sketch, I could have sketched it. So it was almost like a geometric symbol. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot, like I could unpack that. That could be a whole nother show. But
There is
so yeah, so that came up for me. It could have been that it was crystallizing in a sense, that the first image, like maybe I already worked on it, and then they just needed me to get with Cherie to finish like neutralizing it to the point where I was at. So it was almost like it was a crystal, and then it just like melted from there. And then that was it.
Mind
So
will
that's
only
just
create
my
an
opinion.
image. Mind will only create an image of what you understand, what the spirit understands. If I told you to create an image of a bapa cat, what would it look like? You can't form an image of that. But if I said, hey, think of a cat.
Yeah, think of a cat or an
Or
elephant.
don't think of a cat.
Yeah.
So your mind
Yeah.
understands what a cat is. But if the mind doesn't understand what it is, it can't form an image of it. If it can't
Right.
form an image of it, you can't get rid of it, because the image is
Yep.
associated to the feeling. It's the feeling that you want to get rid of,
Yes.
the unwanted feeling. It's very quick. It's very quick. It's lightning quick. It's like a laser beam compared to traditional therapies.
Yes.
Are there people that you're working with that are really severely debilitated when it comes to, okay. And
Right.
they're having
there's
success?
some where the voices actually come out and start making them do jerky things or growling
while you're doing the method.
while I'm doing this stuff. Yeah.
Wow. So you're seeing the full spectrum of, from somebody that's mild to somebody that's really that's debilitated. Okay.
Is it time that affects if they're gonna be like he just explained? What is it, Jerry, that makes some of them worse? Is it time? Do they had them longer?
Well, some of them are really, really in bad shape. I mean, they've been severely emotionally, physically, and sexually abused.
So it's time
and those ones take longer, because there's a lot of damage.
So it has to do with the type of trauma, and then how because each person is different. So the type of trauma, how it affected them. Some things can affect people more than others. Some people have a high tolerance for pain, some don't, but could be the same psychologically. Some people have a high tolerance for some type of trauma. It's probably all over the place then, huh?
Well, yeah, to different degrees. And there's some I can't touch. I mean, I can't touch. They're too far gone.
That's why we should get them early.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can catch them, the earlier you can catch them, the better the chance there are to get rid of that. You can get rid of the voices. I mean, we've done it repeatedly, but the longer it goes, the worse it gets, the less you're able to reach them. You have to be able to communicate with them. You have to be able to reach them.
I have a question. Do you think that the voices, the parasitical aspect of this, do you think that they are coming in after the fact and exacerbating these ridges that we're talking about, these traumas, or are they creating the traumas, or is it both? Could it be all of the above?
They do all of the above, but one of the things they can do is they have access to the patient's memory.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like they go through your Rolodex.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they can go in and they can pick out the most rotten things you ever done, the stuff you feel the most guilty about, and they can bring that up and throw it in your face. They can even bring up stuff. I've seen them bring up stuff that the guy did 20 years ago. And they bring up, oh, you did this to Johnny back then. You remember when you did that? And they rub it in their face. They create that negative emotional energy, and then it gets drained off. And how they drain it off, I have no idea.
I wonder if you had any patients that have stated that they're bringing up something and they remember that parasitical entity being there back when they were younger. Like they may have been responsible for actually creating that situation. And then the actual patient itself is remembering, oh my God, I remember back when I was little, I did hear this and it was there whenever, or it led me into the situation that caused the trauma. I'm just trying to I'm spitballing here.
Do you mean when does the spirit enter? Like when does this negative parasite enter the physical person. Is that what you mean?
No, I'm actually saying, okay, so let's say somebody has a physical trauma when they're younger.
Yeah.
You know, and we can use a sexual type of trauma.
Okay.
Is the parasite involved with the adult? Is the parasite the catalyst for what happens? So the parasite could be infecting the adult, the pedophile.
I'm sure.
No.
Who you know,
I mean, we're speculating.
who in
here.
their right
Just,
mind would do something like that?
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I'm thinking that they are actually the ones that are causing this to happen, because, you know,
They
they're
cause
whispering
that
in the ears
damage.
of everybody. So are
Right.
they the ones then are getting the person who's traumatized? If they're traumatized by another person, they're working with that other person to then traumatize this person to create this scenario that then they feed off of for the rest of their life.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's where psychiatry is saying, oh, it's genetic. No, it's caused by stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, where
And
one,
then that
one guy
person, the person that
traumatizes another.
traumatized them was probably traumatized by somebody
Right.
else, which is just a perpetual loop that, like I've said, this predatory force understands advanced behavioral science and uses this type of interaction. It understands how to push the buttons of a human vessel, and it understands how to juice us. I say they juice us. And so when they set up these scenarios within a person at a young age, then they can juice them for the rest of their life until they get to a point where they can possibly help themselves, which what you're saying is very rare, that somebody is able to get out of this situation.
The Mace system is so good because it can go in and show the person where that ridge is and actually show them how to get rid of it. Without ever knowing what the trauma was. They don't even have to say what
they don't have to relive it. They don't have to go through the PTSD of reliving it like over and over again. Now, let's explain to everybody that, you know, because people are probably thinking, well, if this is so great, why isn't this in the mainstream? Well,
they tried
there's
to
a
bring
reason
it.
why, because it's not going to sell drugs. It's going to actually make people well. And then Ava is not going to have to go into her psychiatrist and get her medicine anymore. So they're not going to be feeding off of her monetarily, in a sense. And neither is the hidden predator aspect. They're not feeding as well. It's cutting off the feeding from all aspects. And that's where that's where somebody like Pierre Sabet comes in and says, it's never going to get into the mental health system. You know, I'm not saying he says this, I'm saying his research, after reading it, I conclude that it's never going to get into the mainstream because it's going to cut off the energy source, the feeding on multiple levels. That scaffolding has to maintain, you know, it has to be maintained. If you bring Mason, you're going to knock down the ridges within the actual system itself.
And actually, Mace did go to the university with Cherie and
I'm
demonstrated how this
up.
worked. They showed them that this worked. They showed them how well it worked. And then I think it was something like, well, okay, we won't deal with it unless you turn it over to us. And they said, no, it took years, decades to put this together. We're not going to turn it over to you. And they said, well, then we want nothing to do with it. The mainstream is going to keep continuing pushing this useless stuff that doesn't work. They're not going to change because it benefits them. It doesn't benefit the client.
Well, unless it spreads like viral or something, if more people find out, because in Australia, it seems to be a pretty big community. If you go online and look at their website, I don't know if it's very big in America though, or Europe. I mean, what do you think, Jerry? Is it coming here to America?
It's growing in America, but it started in Australia. So that's where it started. And
we're hoping shows like this will get people to understand that there is this type of therapy. Somebody like a Jerry is actually using it. Somebody like an Ava has actually benefited from it. And so people are going to be like, I've never heard of this Mace Energy Method. This is how this starts. You know, it starts where we're sharing it. We're sharing somebody that's actually using it, somebody that benefited from it. And then we can go from there. That's probably the way in which this type of method is it's gonna grow from grassroots and from word of mouth. And
that's
woman
right.
that we're talking about is Sherry Hatfield, and I'll put like her links and everything in the description. But that's who Jerry and I work with. Is it's actually Sherry, right? It's Sherry Hatfield, and she is in Australia. That's what Ava was talking about. That's where John Mace right? John Mace
Yep.
is the man who created this system, and that's where he's from. And I'm
he-
glad
and
you
he-
brought up the university, because they wanted to take what he created, his system, and they probably wanted to take it, A, to suppress it, or B, to transform
Change
it into
it,
something
yeah.
where it would not be as effective
Not
as
work.
it is probably what they wanted to do.
Imagine those people, Alcoholic Anonymous.
Mhm.
Now they can just do the Mace system.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, can you imagine? Maybe it will start like that on a grassroots level or something. I don't know. We need to have more people that it works with first, so that people would find out about it.
Yeah, and
You see,
somebody
because
like
it's
you,
so easy.
yeah, somebody like
Yeah.
you that's used it, that is like, well, hell, I would like to train in this. And then your friends
Yeah.
are like, then your friends see
Yes.
the difference in you, and they're like,
Yes.
well, let's try it. And then they
Yeah.
try it, and then it kind of snowballs from there. And
That's
you
what I
know,
think.
it's kind of like with the nutritional aspect. There's a lot of people that are going keto and carnivore. I do the carnivore diet, and a
Mhm.
lot of them are getting pushback from their doctors, yet their blood work is perfect. So no one's going to stop doing something if it's beneficial for them and they're seeing the benefit, even if a person in a white coat is telling them, do not do it. Because for those of us who we were using the carnivore diet as a last resort to heal medical conditions that the medical community wasn't able to heal. I remember I went to a dermatologist because I had psoriasis. I had it over 30% of my body. And once I started eating keto and carnivore, it completely went away. I don't take any medicine. And I remember I went to my dermatologist, and she was just like, what happened? What are you doing? And I told her I changed my diet. And she was just like, it almost didn't register with her. It's like she short circuited, and she was like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And I'm like, I just freaking told you what I was doing. What are you talking about? It's like she couldn't, literally, like her circuits went blah, blah, blah. Like she couldn't even understand the fact that, okay, I took plants out, I took this out, I took seed oils out, and I healed myself. And she was just like, well, that doesn't happen. That does not compute. I can appreciate what Jerry is talking about, coming from that type of community where you find something that works and nobody wants to listen to it because they just can't believe it for themselves. We just have to go down our own freaking path and find people like Ava, help them out, find more Jerrys and Avas, and freaking do it ourselves, because no one is going to listen. And the system itself is never going to change because it does not benefit us. It benefits somebody else.
Right.
So I'm off my soapbox.
Okay, I'm running out of time, but I want to point out that John Mace wrote 2 books on the energetic method. So there's 2 books you can get out there that describe the basics. And there is a training program that you can get involved with if you want to become a certified practitioner.
Excellent.
Yes.
And Jerry, I'll get all of those links from you. And Ava, you brought up books that Jerry recommended when you first got with him. I want a list of those books as well, if you don't mind.
Yep.
And we'll put everything in the description. I'll put Jerry's website. Ava, do you want anybody to contact you as of now, or are you still kind of? No. Okay.
I'm fine. I mean, later on when I become a Mace practitioner, then I'm going to be advertising it, you know.
Okay. And then, maybe we'll have you guys back on and we can do a follow-up to the show to show how successful this method is, because you went from, coming to Jerry needing help to now you're helping others. And that's exactly
I will be. Yes, exactly. Like you give it, pay it forward. And the best part of all is that this is easy. Remember, it's easy. You want it easy. You don't want it hard. It doesn't even hurt. It's like, it's fun.
It hurts sometimes. It hurts sometimes.
Yeah. And then, just real quick, so that everybody knows, how long from each session? Like when you do an initial session, is it about an hour long for the
an hour
and a
half? An hour to an hour and a half is what we've been doing. We've been doing it about twice a month. So I was going to say, but we get to read about 3 ridges each time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, she's closing on being finished here soon.
Yeah. So success for someone at where you were coming from could be 6 months.
Usually it's quicker
average. It's quicker than that.
Okay. And there's 2 main ones. They call it the rune, which is the one that really destroys people's life.
Okay.
Everybody's got one.
Okay. And you focus on that one first, right?
That one first, and then there's the different identities that are formed from different traumas.
Okay.
You know, and we'll go after those one at a time until they say there's nothing there. Then you're done.
Yeah. And then maybe you come back whenever something else comes up. You know,
Yeah,
like
they can contact
maybe,
if something else comes up.
And if something else comes up, you could just run the program again. And
Right.
then, you know, so it's something that you can use going forward as a treatment. Maybe
it's like
maybe,
clearing your energy, cleaning your
Yeah.
energy, cleaning your house up. Things are going to happen, and you're going to need to clean it out, because you can't do this to yourself, right, Jerry? You can't
No.
use this technique on yourself.
you do need someone to facilitate the process.
There is some reason for it. I don't know what the reason is, but there is a reason for it, because you can't do it to
Well,
yourself.
it's like you're inside of a car and you're trying to see the whole car.
Yeah.
You know, you try, well, you only can see the inside of the car.
Mhm.
You know, anything that you can see can't be you.
Mhm.
Right.
Well, this was really amazing. Is there anything else that you guys want to say to conclude this? I'm so excited that you came to talk about this. I think this is a really important show, and I definitely want to have you back if you decide to actually start down that path of becoming certified and then start treating somebody. That would be really exciting to have you back to talk even further, and have Jerry back on as well. Is there anything you wanted to say to the audience before we stop recording here?
Not me.
No.
Well, I can say schizophrenia can be cured. It's not a lifetime plague like the psychiatric mafia is telling you.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't reach some of the more advanced cases, some of the more violent cases, you can't reach those. But if we can catch them early enough,
Mhm.
you know, that there's, I think maybe 4 now, the voices have completely disappeared, and they're off and running with a new life. It is possible.
Yeah. And this Mace Energy Method is what we were just talking about, and what Ava's had such great success with, as well as the That's a Lie program that Sherry Sweeney created. And I'll put links to everything in the description. But thanks again to the both of you. And I'm so excited that you were able to come here today and have this conversation. I look forward to doing this again sometime soon when Ava is doing it herself.
Yeah.
It takes 45 months for me. I think it takes 45 months for me to get ready. I mean, to finish my education. I won't start until July. So I would say maybe by the end of the year.
Okay. Yeah. So next year, I'll make a mental note that next year we'll have you back on, and you'll be running your own sessions, and then the two of you can talk. So, and explain to everybody the whole process of how. I just think it's fascinating that you're going from being treated to then treating other people. So I love that whole evolution that you've gone through. It's really beautiful. And I'm happy that you found it. And you're an amazing person. And if I'm ever out your way, I definitely want to try the trapeze.
Okay.
You know, just Jerry and I will be out there doing it together.
Do it.
That would be a hilarious video, Jerry. The two of us.
Film it.
I'll stick to flying sailplanes. I think I have more control over that than I would have trapeze.
Okay.
Oh, I would love it.
Okay.
All right.
And
Well,
Ava, thank you for having the courage to come on and speak up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've come a long way from where we started.
Yeah.
I think people can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I love it, and I'm very grateful. Thank you very much.
Yes, it was very nice meeting you. Thanks again, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I'll catch up with you shortly.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.